Hey guys, so we normally do like kind of a free form podcast, as you know, and I hope you I hope you have been enjoying them thus far. But today we want to do something a little bit different. We not only want to talk about a specific topic on 2 different devices that are now available for purchase, but we also want to bring somebody else into the fray. Quinnton, who do we want to bring into the fray?
It's Dylan.
There's Dylan.
Yay.
Hey, Dylan. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, and then we'll kind of explain why we brought you into this.
Well, hello. My name is Dylan. I am a musician by trade. I perform under the name Osito, and I've been doing that for 8 years now. And yeah, that's the quick introduction.
So, with regard to music, do you think that there's any chance that we might have heard any of your stuff before?
Possibly, if you listen to a lot of trance, yeah. There's a good possibility, especially if you keep up with like a state of trance. I had a song that was featured on episode 856, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Thank you.
Hopefully this gets you a little bit more notoriety with people like myself who haven't jumped into that genre since you stopped doing drugs. So, back to the topic at hand, though. We're here primarily to talk about new piercings for Quinnton. Obviously, he should get a nose ring.
Yeah.
But also phones.
Yeah, we figured that there's a lot of stuff going on with phones right now, and normally we'd lump this in with our podcast, but we figured we'd try something different and separate the two.
Yeah, I mean, I know we kind of said at the beginning that we wouldn't have guests, but then I had a secret guest, aka his wife. So,
not like a week or two after we had like this long talk about not having a guest, and then lo and behold, I get on. I don't even know about it until it releases. That's the thing. It's already out. It's not even like, oh, by the way, I've decided to do this thing. No. It's like, hey, by the way, a new podcast episode dropped. And it's like, what do you mean a new podcast episode dropped? No. It's a podcast episode without you. What?
So once again, thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Madison. Appreciate that. But we both agreed that Dylan would be good to have on. Not just because music wise, very interesting, but also he has a love of tech. He has a love of these phones and an understanding of why iOS or why Microsoft Duo, and or has some good arguments for and against. So, gentlemen. How about them Raiders? No, I don't know. No, let's get in with it. So we got the new iPhone 12.
Oh, can we talk about the conference first? The amount of times that they said 5G.
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 No, Dylan and I watched it actually in person together, and I remember just like my biggest takeaway after everything, I was just like, they're saying 5G a lot. And
yeah, it was a little much.
After a while, you're just like, I get it. It has 5G. At this point, I don't care.
Dylan, you were able to watch live with Quinnton. Did you also kind of have the same idea of like, okay, 5G, very important, but move on? Or were you excited? Did the content itself excite you for what's to come with 5G?
I mean, at first, like when it was like first mentioned, it was really exciting. But then after a while, it's like, okay, I get it. It's got 5G, and it felt like they were kind of like trying to like wedge that announcement into like everything they possibly could, and it was driving me mad after a certain point. So.
I mean, of a conference, of a tech event, of a press event of this nature, like, did you think that they touched on the other parts of the phones and of iOS updates and stuff like that? Or did they miss the ability to really dive into why people should buy this phone, and do you know maybe what that new feature or that new capability is?
I think they did a good job at being able to dive into at least the hardware side of the new phone. I wish they would have talked more about iOS 14 a little bit, because it's been a little while since we heard about it. And so it would be good to have those refreshers and like why this phone is so great, specifically with iOS 14 and things like that. I think they missed the mark there a little bit. But other than that, I think they did a pretty good job.
That's a great point, because I feel like in other conferences past, they'll go, here's the iPhone 11, but also iOS 13, and also all you are getting iOS 13, whether you update or not. You're getting iOS 13. You're getting iOS 13, and this is what iOS 13 is going to give you. And this time it was like iOS 14. Okay, moving on. Here's the new stuff with the new phone, because 5G.
Right. Yeah.
They seem to tie every single hardware feature to 5G, even if it was like the camera's better, and here's how 5G is going to make camera better, and it's like, stop. Holy crap. Like, let's talk about the software, and be like, yeah, software is great, but 5G, listen, you're going to be able to upload your photos so fast.
I wonder like, if that was,
oh my gosh,
because they have this agreement with Verizon, right? Like if you go to Verizon and you do a trade-in or whatever, Verizon, for right now, at least with the standard iPhone 12, they were giving some quote-unquote amazing deals, and then also available with AT&T and T-Mobile and whatnot. So I wonder if Verizon said, hey, in your script, you need to really mention 5G, and then we're going to have somebody come out and really throw why people should go with Verizon 5G, which is a whole nother conversation, because there's two different versions on how you obtain 5G. Verizon's 5G is different than AT&T's 5G. But that's a whole different story. Going back to what you would say, Quinnton, regarding the hardware, let's talk about hardware first. Was there anything that really stuck out to you hardware-wise with the phone? That you have the 11, right? You have the 11. I have the 11. We love the 11. But was there anything in the 12
Pro?
Right. So
it's a matter
that's true.
It's a thing that you need to mention. No,
that's
and
true.
that's something
that's
that really I really want to
hone in on is when they announced the 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max. That was really cool, because it was like, hey, you can have the phone or the bigger phone, but they both have the same camera and they're both amazing. And then I was like, cool, I like that model of like, hey, I'm getting the most premium version, so no matter the screen size, I get the most premium version. And now they've kind of gone back on that and been like, no, but if you get the bigger screen size this year, you're going to get these fancier new features on the camera. And it's like, no, the point of the Pro would be like, no matter how big my phone is, it's always the best camera. Now they've gone back, and it's like you have the 12 Pro and the 12 Pro.
Right. It's the Double Pro, the Double Pro. Dylan, do you yourself own an iPhone? And if so, like which one do you have, or which one do you aspire to have?
I do. I have the iPhone 11 Pro Max. Yeah.
Oh, you and I are Pro buddies, Pro Max buddies. Yeah. I mean, clearly. When we get into it, we just go into it.
Yeah, I'm definitely that person who's like, I want, if I can afford it, the top. So
and that's because me coming from Android, it's always been like that. Like you had to get the XL version of the device to get the better capabilities, better camera, better battery life, better not just screen resolution, but like its refresh rate, things like that. You had to go with the Ultra Pro, amazingly awesome, the device. So it was a little disconcerting to see that Apple was going back, or not going back necessarily, but going to that with the Pro Max. Did they launch the Pro and the Pro Max and all the other devices at different times last year, like they're doing this year? Or
no?
Yeah, I wondered about that.
Everything came out kind of at the same time last year. And I think
the supply chain thing, or if it's just they were really trying to separate the two launches to make like two giant events. I don't know.
My best guess is it's a supply chain thing, just because of the nature of this year.
Yeah. No, this year's been weird. But so with respects to the hardware itself, I mean, I don't know about you, Dylan, but I know Quinnton and I were really big into the camera, and so the camera was really impressive, to say the least. I used my camera to shoot a lot of video, so if they're able to do stabilization in the video, I'm very excited for that because they have that new chip. Quinnton, you see that new stabilization chip? It's an actual physical chip that stabilizes your
moving the sensor instead of the
yeah,
lens.
right, exactly. And we're even going as far as doing it physically instead of digitally. So I was very impressed by that.
Well, we've had physical optical image stabilization before. Like that came out on like the 7. This is the first time that they, instead of moving the lens, they're moving the sensor though.
Yeah. So I don't know.
But that's only for the Mac. So it goes back to the point of like, what's the Pro and the Pro?
Yeah, that is true.
Was there anything else, I mean, with respects to the actual iPhone part of the launch? Because I think they also mentioned other things too. But in respects to the iPhone part of the launch, was there anything hardware-wise or software-wise? I mean, what did you guys think of 5G? No, I'm kidding. Was there anything that stood out to you that made it worth your while to get up that early in the morning to watch this hour-long stream?
Well, I'll give you a little easy segue, which is I was honestly really hoping for a dual screen iPhone after all this, after everything. I was genuinely like, Apple, come on, let's see your play on this. Let's see your take. And nothing. And honestly, I don't see it ever happening. Like, knowing their track record, knowing like just what they've been doing in the last few, not even just few years, but many years, it's like, oh, touchscreen computers are a thing now. Okay, Apple, let's see what you got. 7 years. Okay, Apple, it's been 7 years. What you got? Oh, no.
We got the touch bar.
Oh, is it like a decently sized screen that has like touch menu and stuff like that? No.
It only works with apps that have allowed for it to work.
Yeah, no, I don't foresee them ever doing it. I feel like they would kill it if they did. But
Agree.
like that's kind of why we want to talk about the Duo though, like because it's the first, I don't know, it's the first non-Apple phone that feels like the quality of an Apple phone.
Before we get into the Duo, I actually want to ask both of you guys, before the Duo was even announced last year, what were your thoughts about when there were talks about foldable phones or flippable phones or dual screen phones? Were you like, yeah, bring it on? Or were you like, oh, I don't see the reason for that? Like I've gone with a larger screen device, sure, but I can do everything I need to do on this one screen. I don't need another screen to have to worry about cracking it or have to fumble it open when I'm like just walking down the street trying to text my fiance or whatever. Were you guys open to the idea of foldable screen phones, or was it more like this is a little bit too little too late?
I mean, I was open to it. I love when like people kind of push the limits of technology and really take advantage of that. But I think my initial concern was durability. Like, are we to a point where the screens and the way we protect those screens, can they hold up to like everyday use and power user use? You know, that was my initial concern. And I think that still kind of remains to be seen because they haven't been out in the wild for super long. You know, they've been out long enough, but not long enough to really say if we're quite to where we think we are, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, last year when the original Galaxy Fold came out and they had that creasing issue, I knew that Samsung was going to learn from that and make the next iteration of it much, much better. And guess what? They freaking did it. The new Galaxy Fold, the Z Fold, is Like if you're looking for a Samsung device and you want to be more productive, or not even productive necessarily, you just want that aspect of the foldable screen, they've done it. Or if you want an original looking Motorola Razr did it. Not the greatest camera or processor, but they still did it. They look great. Quinnton, were you open-minded to the opportunity, not just for Apple to maybe do it, or when you saw an Android device maker come out with one, did you say to yourself, that's just another, let's throw it on the wall and see if it sticks? Or were you like, oh, okay, innovation, creation time, let's go?
I would answer with the problems that I like when they first were like foldable phones. I was like, well, here's the problems I can think of. These problems exist currently with even the Samsung Z Fold. Like, it still has that middle section is very clearly plastic and clearly is not uniform. When you have it open, it's very not just, oh, it's a screen. It's a screen. There's a substantial there's a problem right here. It's not consistent, and I'm not a big fan of that. It's just got all these little things that I'm just like, what are you trying to do? And then also the other thing would be is it's just a bigger screen. There's no use for it. It just feels like more proof of concept. Look, we made a dual screen phone. It's better. And it's okay, but not a dual screen, but we made a screen that flips and opens and is bigger. And it's okay, but why? It looks so cool. Look, watch. And it's okay, but why do I want that? Well, you can have the thing and it's bigger. Yes, it definitely is bigger, but how can this work into my wheelhouse other than just me? Why shouldn't I just carry around a tablet for the cost of how much I'm spending on that phone extra? Because especially when they first came out, they were $500 above the premium phone market.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're watching this. Do you not see this motion? So cool. Yeah. And so I don't know this. Yeah. The foldable phones, I've just been watching the market just okay, show me at some point where it's going to be wow, I need that. That's not even that'd be cool. It's holy crap, that needs to be in my wheelhouse immediately.
So thanks to our day job, you and I have been lucky enough to be granted the opportunity to try out the foldable phone, the dual screen phone. And to be clear, there's not a single screen. There's literal two screens that are being housed in this. We're not going to talk specs necessarily. We don't really have to, because whatever the specs are, I think the question that looms over is what Quinnton was alluding to. Why? Why is this cool? Why is this useful? And that was something that, Quinnton, you were asking, hypothetically, to all these people that were excited for foldable screens. Now you have one, and earlier you and Dylan both said it'd be great for Apple to come out with one. Why? What is your argument for foldable screens now that you have used one on a daily?
So, argument for foldable screens or argument for Apple? Argument for Apple, the main reason I have an iPhone is because of the cameras. Because Apple doesn't make their cameras. Sony makes their cameras. And I like Sony cameras. And so that's one of the main reasons I've stuck with iPhone, is because the cameras have been awesome and exactly what I've been looking for in a cell phone device. Now, the Duo, the dual screen, is amazing. And honestly, as someone who's never used Android, it feels familiar. The swipe commands feel normal to me, which is super weird. It's super weird to see Android people and they're like, I want the 3 little buttons on the screen, and I'm like, can I not ever see them? And honestly, you don't have to. It feels like home. It feels like, oh, this is familiar. The only difference is on iOS, when you go to like your most recently used apps, it scrolls horizontally, whereas this one scrolls vertically. And once you know that, it's just like, oh, okay, that's an easy thing to think about. But like switching apps and all that kind of stuff is just the same as an iPhone, which honestly is amazing. And the reason I want Apple to try it is I want to see competition in this market where it's not just a feeling of proof of concept. I want to see a, like, the way Microsoft and Surface have done it is like they've shown a reason why, of like, hey, we're not just going to go say, oh, we made a dual screen device. We're going to make a dual screen device and make it like the reason why you want a dual screen device.
So what are those reasons for you, though?
For
Because marketing, we've seen the marketing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
What are the firewall reasons?
Right. And honestly, the one that like really stuck with me and like made me start using the dual screen, it was 100% Among Us and the keyboard. No, not even Netflix. Among Us and the keyboard. Being able to have the chat open and then the keyboard on the other screen so you can talk to people and rat people out and stuff. And on the other screen, you can still keep up with the chat is amazing, because on any other device, when you're doing that, as soon as you have that keyboard on screen, you can't see anything. You can't see anything of what anyone's doing or saying. Whereas on the Duo, you totally can. And that was the moment when I was like, oh, this is a game changer. Like,
the developers, because this capability of using dual screens is something that is baked into Android 11 now. It's not necessarily just a Duo thing. So if someone were to say, well, I want a foldable device, but I want to go with the Samsung foldable device, theoretically, you'd be able to have the exact same experience that Quinnton is talking about. Now, Dylan, when you went over to Quinnton's, I'm sure, did he give you a chance to play around with the Duo? What was your initial impression before, and then when you actually saw it, what did you think about it then?
I mean, I didn't really have like a before opinion. I was intrigued by it, but I was just kind of like, huh, that's neat. And then actually using it, I was like, okay, this is actually really impressive. And in some ways, I thought it was better than an actual just like one large foldable screen. I really liked the separation of that. The durability, thoughts that I had earlier didn't kind of come into play or weren't necessarily a worry with the Duo. And overall, I think it's a very solid device.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me at least, when we came out last year saying that we're going to be manufacturing an Android device that is essentially designed and thought up by the same people that came out with the Surface Pro, I knew, and it's running Android, I knew that like everything was going to be, at least for me, like really at the tip of all capabilities, unfortunately, for that time. At the time of announcement and the time of release, it's the same processor, it's the same camera, they didn't do any bumps, which is a little disconcerting considering there's been a ton of improvements for those things in that 10-month period. And to keep the cost low, because it is a new foldable device, they had to use old stuff, which like I said, it is unfortunate. But similar to Quinnton, I did find utilizing the Duo for both entertainment and work simultaneously was something that I could do. It's fundamentally what I do on my screens here. I'll have, Adobe Premiere Pro opened up, editing video, and then next to it I'll have Hulu. So in the middle of my renderings, I'll watch My Hero Academia. And then I'll watch 10 minutes of that, and then when it's done rendering, I'll go back to the render and pause that. I can do that now, theoretically, like on this thing, but with other apps. And it's funny to see what apps are important for people to bring up side by side. Quinnton and I just mentioned Netflix and Among Us. There's some people that are very much more work focused, so they want their stocks and their emails side by side. But then you have people that need Pokemon Go and that other what's that game called, Quinnton? That
Wizards Unite.
Thank you, the Wizards Unite game. You could have that side by side on here, and you'd be killing both games. It'd be crazy. Like you'd have to use 2 fingers. Like yeah, like 2 yeah, like however it works. Expelliarmus, go Pikachu. Expelliarmus Pikachu. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I'm excited for this. I do have some wishes though. And one of the big wishes are give me a better camera, because as much as this particular device is geared toward people that are productive and you will get much better productivity, battery life has lasted me at least, I would say, 85% of the day. Give me a better camera. Why? Because I'm doing Zoom calls on this. Because I'm doing team calls on this. So if I'm doing those sorts of things, don't market it as the vistas of Utah are gonna. No, forget about that. That's what a point and shoot's for. Market it for those people that are in calls all day and that are lugging their big freak off computer to Starbucks. Now you don't have to do that. You have your array microphones to block out the Starbucks sound. You have your much better camera to do Microsoft Teams, and you've got your Surface earbuds to be able to chat or whatever. Those are like the some of the key things that I would wish, at least in this next iteration, would come.
The big thing for me is I want to see them not do what they did last time with Windows phones, because one of the big things with Windows phones was that, like, what was it? It was like 64 megapixel or 32 megapixels, something like that, or some really like outlandishly high number for a camera on a phone, and they were like, look how cool it is, and it was cool.
No, it was 42.
I want them to 42. Yeah, okay, there we go. But I want them to not make that mistake this time. So it wasn't necessarily a mistake then, but I feel like it would miss the mark now of like, we added more megapixel, and it's like, that's not what makes a great camera though. Just shoving more megapixels in there isn't gonna make a better camera.
Right. Yeah.
And I really
want
hope
quality over megapixel quantity at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big thing. I know for many years with a lot of Android phones, you get a lot of, when you had the time old argument of Android versus iOS. You're still stuck on 12 megapixels, and our phone has 24. Our phone has 32. And it's like, that's not the point. You're missing the mark here, bud.
I definitely wish that the hope the camera's a little bit better. I'm not a big fan of the speakers either. I don't know if you've had the same issues that I've had, but they're very tinny. The iPhone speakers are not tinny. These are very tinny. And I mean, Dylan, you're the music guy. I know you hate the tin. I mean, I guess.
I'm not a fan of thin and tinny sounding speakers at all.
Yeah, these are very tinny, and it's like, okay, I gotta turn that down and just turn on subtitles.
They're not necessarily bad to me, but the thing I want to see from a next iteration is going to be having the speakers on both screens. So it doesn't matter which screen is facing me, the speakers are always going to be facing me, because I've noticed that, like, sometimes I'm like, wow, the audio sounds a little not off, but like not towards me, and then you hold the device and you're like, oh, very clearly the audio is going that way and I'm here.
Right.
Yeah. And so you have to like, okay, I flip the device around and you get the speakers so they're facing you and stuff, and like I get it, but also I'm like, no, it should be not, you shouldn't have to think about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think with the new devices that were announced this year, we can all agree that there is a reason for one person to buy the new iPhone 12, and then a reason for somebody to buy the Surface Duo.
Mm-hmm.
But as exciting as these devices are now, I'm more excited for not necessarily next year, because I honestly don't see Apple coming out with anything next year. I feel like they're the ones that are like, let's wait for the 3rd gen and see how that works, and then they'll come out with something, which is sad, because they came out with the iPad, And then everyone else is like, yeah, we have iPad things too. So they can innovate, right? They can do new things.
But you forget one thing. You forget one big thing with that. Steve Jobs was around back then.
I know. That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
Steve Jobs was around. I don't think Johnny Ive is at Apple anymore. Is that correct? Am I correct with that? I could be correct.
I don't know.
I'm just going to say I'm correct. No one look it up on Wikipedia. Tony's correct. Okay, we'll just mark that.
Put a little check mark there and move on.
Imagine Johnny's listening. I can't imagine him listening to his podcast like, I'm still there. I might be knighted, but I'm still there. No, I think it would be it definitely would be really cool for Cook and that team to say, all right, obviously these things are coming along on the Android side, but we know that we can really flush out all the other crap that these dual screens have on Android because of our engineers, because of our know-how and whatnot. Let's do it. I just don't see that happening at least for like 2 years.
That's a very hopeful time frame in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah.
How long were you thinking?
Honestly, if you're talking dual screens, if I were to put my money on the table, it would be never.
Never.
Like unless dual. Well, I don't even know about that because it goes back to the thing I was talking about earlier with touchscreen computers. Touchscreen computers, we had them back in like 2012, and they were starting to take off real fast. And now it's like you look at the last just couple of years, and it's like, you know, you got to have a touchscreen computer, you got to have a 2-in-1 device, you got to have that, and it's like Apple has done nothing. And it's not even like a oh, we're, you know, only on our Pro device or something. It's like zero.
It's funny. In our day job, I was in a retailer where I was adjacent to the Apple display, and this little girl, probably around the age of my daughter, so around 8-9 years old, she was with her grandmother, and she ran to the Apple table and she's like, "These are so beautiful! And look at this touchscreen. Wait, the touchscreen, Grandma, the touchscreen's not working." And I just kind of leaned over and I said, actually, they don't have touchscreen. No, they do. And she went over to the iMac, which is, for those who don't know, it's the desktop, the all-in-one desktop. This has a look. It's beautiful. It's got to be a touchscreen. Like, no, the only touchscreen is the iPads. And then she's like, okay, fine. And she's like, I already have an iPad. I'm like, okay, spoiled much. And then she just so happened to turn to where my table is, the Windows table is, and just looked at this HP, just run-of-the-mill HP, just nothing special. Well, this doesn't have a touchscreen. Yes, it does, actually. It does? And she just tapped. Oh, this has a touchscreen. Like, yeah, everything on this table except the gaming laptop has a touchscreen. This is Windows. I just kind of looked at her like, this is Windows. I know you're not going to care. You're not going to get it. It's not a big deal. You're 9. But know that this is Windows. Tell all your friends. That was my biggest sale of the day. Okay.
She looks at you. I'll take 12.
That would have been amazing. Like, this is why you don't prejudge your customers.
Yeah.
Okay, so Quinnton says never. Dylan, do you also say never? Are you still in the same camp, or are you a little bit more hopeful like I am?
I mean, I'm hopeful, but yeah, I don't see it happening unless it just becomes like the just I guess the norm, and it would be weird for them not to. And like that's the only way I can see it happening. But even then, yeah, it's like up in the air because Quinton's right. Like there are no touchscreen Macs available now, and I think their philosophy kind of behind that is that they don't want to eat into sales of the iPad because that's doing very well. And I think they're afraid that bringing that functionality into Mac computers will somehow hurt the sales of their iPad, which hopefully that's not what they're thinking, because I doubt that would happen. They're two very different devices that can do very different things.
No, but you bring up a great point. The iPad Pro, how is Apple marketing it? This is your new computer. That's essentially what they were saying with the iPad Pro. Now, how much is an iPad Pro though? The one thing, like when people say like, why would I buy this like why would I buy this device over that device when they're cost wise they're going to be about the same. And like for me, like yes, the iPad Pro arguably is a little bit cheaper, but then you still have to buy the keyboard, you still have to pay for the cell phone plan, because you might not be in Wi-Fi range at all times, or a hotspot, you still have to pay for that. Whereas if you do invest in this, the nice thing about investing in a phone, for the most part, you pay it off with your contract. Now, I know not everybody does that. That's how I do it, because I don't have $2,000 in my pocket. I have 28. Oh, it only 28 today? Down payment? I can do that. Let's do that. That's how I would pay off the phone. And I think that's what most people do. So I think my point is it's weird that that Apple is still marketing their iPads that way, considering more and more people are looking for more portable, like smaller portable devices, but sizable enough to really be able to get their work done but still be able to play their games.
As a reference point, the cheapest iPad Pro with no extra frills, no keyboard, no nothing is $799.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's up there.
It's not cheap. That's the other thing that always kills me. The thing whenever, and I guarantee you they're going to do it tomorrow, because tomorrow, which is going to be the 11th or the 10th of November 2020, if you're watching this in the future, Apple's slated to have an event tomorrow, which everyone's banking is going to talk about Mac and probably the MacBooks and stuff like that. I guarantee you they're going to compare, especially if they bring up any sort of iPad, they're going to compare it to a Windows, they're like the most common Windows device. And the most common Windows device that they always bring up is this terrible HP, and they're not even that somehow they've decided to not even use Windows 10. They're using let's make sure not to use the Windows 10 settings menu. Let's load up the old Windows 7 control panel, it's the legacy control panel, and put it on screen, but let's off center it and put it weirdly on the screen so it doesn't fit right. And let's pull up the old, all this old stuff that doesn't it's legacy. It's very clearly legacy, and I hate it every time. It just boils my blood, because you hear the people in the crowd, and it's this isn't even true. This isn't even close to being true.
This is a great example of misinformation. Clearly.
Yeah. It boils my blood. It just, you don't even I get it. You want to say our entry level is better than their entry level. You want to talk about that, fine, but at least be fair.
$800. Their entry level is $300, and that's right. That in itself is not apples to apples. If you're gonna compare your $800 entry level to our $800 mid-range level, those do tend to get better. But yes, to your point, don't bring up the legacy stuff. Stop bringing up the legacy stuff. We know Windows is weird because it still has the legacy stuff, but sysadmins like the legacy stuff because they're used to it.
And old people like the legacy stuff.
Yes.
But
when you boot up Windows for the first time, the out-of-box experience is do you want the nerdy stuff? Yes, please. just like how on Google, when you go to YouTube, do you want all the nerd stats? Yes, I do. I don't even know what half of this stuff means. I just like all the bumps and lines. Bring it on.
It says I have a 0% choke rate. I don't know what that means, but I'm happy to say I have a 0% choke rate.
It's in green, so I guess that's a good thing. So I said better camera. What better things would you like to see? Not just from Apple, but just in general. Or I guess maybe specifically with the Duo. What better things would you like to see? Dylan, Quinn?
And I can't use the camera? Can I double down on the camera? Other than the camera, like if I'm doing a wish list, and this isn't something that necessarily is like, oh man, this this bugged me on the first iteration, but if I were to improve it in any way that I could, it'd be tighter bezels. The bezels are they're not terrible, especially for a dual screen device, but like they're there and they're noticeable, and you know, if we could make them smaller, great, but like it's not something I will like preface it, it's not something that's like bugging me, whereas the camera is something that I'm like, no, next one, get it done. This is something that I'd be like, hey, if you can make them better, great. What about you, Dylan?
The only thing that comes to mind, because I haven't used it quite as much as you two have, just off of what you guys have said, it's hopefully improved audio. I think everybody can benefit from that. Yeah, I think that's probably, and I mean, also echoing both of you, camera improvements. I think those would be the two things that I would like to see in the next generation of it.
Yeah, clearly we know what our respective priorities are. Like us up here, like taking photos, and down there it's like audio. Mute. You're a musician, so audio is key. Put a DAC in there. You know, like if you're able to,
Right?
throw a DAC in there, because why the heck not? I feel like kind of like what Quinnton was echoing before, relating to Apple. Like Apple themselves don't make the cameras; they have Sony do it. So if, but the other company that does have a foldable device is Samsung. So would you, Quinnton, because you're a little bit more like, oh yeah, that's how you talk. Like, yeah, I would like, I would like to try out more of these things. What would you give Samsung the light of day, or have you heard, or is there a reason why you think maybe having physical two screens is better than just one foldable? I know you mentioned the middle is plastic. What are your thoughts on that?
That bezel doesn't do it for me. That or the lack of bezel, the plastic bit in the middle, I don't like that aesthetic. Like, I get what they're going for. It feels very that's the difference. That's the difference I feel like between like the Z Fold and the Surface Duo. The Z Fold feels very first gen, and I know it's not first gen, but it feels very first gen. It feels like, hey, it's our first try at a foldable device, and it's like, okay, hit me up when we can like have a cleaner, you know, transition between the two screens. Then we'll talk, but let me know. Whereas like the Duo, like as much as we talk about, you know, oh, this is their first attempt and stuff like that, it's like at the same time kind of not. Like it all the hardware is based on stuff that's already around. We already talked about like the processor and all that stuff's already been, you know, very much established, but like when it comes to the actual hardware in the device, it's all based on Surface. It's all based on stuff that's, you know, 7 generations old, 3 generations old, 2 generations old, but like it's stuff that's already established. We know how to do this stuff, and so it doesn't feel that like first gen that when you look at something like the Z Fold, it feels very that first 1-2 gens, and it's just, you know, trying to figure itself out. This doesn't feel like that. Other than the camera, when you take that out of the equation, it feels very much like, oh, this has been around. This feels premium. This feels really nice.
I mean, the one thing I show people is this hinge. Like any angle I want, the hinge stays. Now, it does tend to get a little top heavy. I'll give it that.
But that makes sense.
It does make sense. The one of the greatest things that I had was my daughter and I think it was last Wednesday, we did a Twitch stream, an IRL stream, an in real life stream. And I used this. So on the top was my video to make sure I was in frame. And then on the bottom was the chat room. Kind of like your Among Us thing. And I'll tell you, I don't know how other people deal with that without a dual screen. Because that was beautiful. It was just so easy to be able to clearly see the chat, you know, in real time. And then also make sure that we were in frame. And so having the physical divide between the two screens, I think really helps not just the developers, but it just kind of helps you as the user to say, okay, these are going to be separate, or this is how these apps are going to interact with each other on a dual screen.
And that's the other thing is when I was talking about bezels and stuff, like the bezels specifically between the two screens, they're the smallest bezels of the phone. Like it's kind of hard to see there at the green screen and everything, but like they are the tightest point for those bezels are between the two screens. It's not much space. It's
Right.
They definitely could do it. I know when I got my Pixel 3 XL, I made a lot of, I don't want to say excuses. I guess like mental sacrifices, because they're saying how their screen to body ratio is much better than the other Pixels had been in years past. And then Apple came out with the iPhone 11 at the time, and there's like no body, it's just screen. And I was like, okay, come on. like so it's clearly possible for these manufacturers to figure it out. I think it really comes down to cost cutting measures. I don't think, you know, if when you design a phone, when you think of a phone like in Star Trek, it's all screen. So it comes down to where they literally can cut the bezel, but it's also not going to cut into having to make the phone the base model like $2,300.
Yeah.
No, it's very funny to think about the real estate inside of a phone and the amount of like, okay, we want to put this in there, and it's like, okay, well that takes up 22 nanometers and we don't have that space for you. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Well, I think, I mean, also like Apple making their own chip, like what were they up to, like A10 now or something like that for the new iPhone 12, A12?
14.
They whatever the number is, they have billions and billions of microprocessors, transistors in that chip. Like I couldn't even fathom the idea of counting that many transistors that they have in there, and they fit them in there. They freaking did it. The chip that Microsoft is using in this guy is your, wow, what am I doing? The chip that Microsoft's using in this guy is your run-of-the-mill chip that pretty much anybody can get when you go to Shenzhen. And it just, yeah, we'll just do that. They didn't do any kind of custom chip. They should. If they're going to, if Microsoft is going to do a custom chip for their Surface Pro X, the ARM-based Surface Pro, they can definitely do it for their phone. And so I feel like they did it last year to just kind of be ahead of the curve. Because last year, there's really only one device that was the foldable screen, which failed. That was the original Galaxy Fold. So Microsoft said, we came out with a foldable device too, and it's not going to fail because it doesn't have a hit, or it doesn't have a foldable screen, but it has kind of not the best processor. But don't worry about it. So I feel like they've learned. I hope they've learned their lesson from that.
Well, it's always been that way with like you don't need the fastest processor, you need the better software. I mean, you look at like in years past with iPhone and
you need
stuff
to
like
marry
that. It's
the
like,
two.
well, you need to marry the two,
Yes.
but like you even see like in years past with iPhone, people were like, oh, well, the current Snapdragon's much faster than the iPhone. It's like, okay, but the iPhone loads everything faster because it's programmed better.
Right. And that kind of goes back to the whole adage of Apple. Like, they build everything. The processor, they build the software and the hardware, and they really tune that hardware, specifically the chip, to work with their processor. The Duo, not so much. The Duo, they built the hardware, but not the chip. And I feel like that's what they're missing. They're missing having a chip to really not just take advantage of Android, but take advantage of some of the functionality that that some of these other chipsets can do, and either just mimic them or just kind of surpass them. That's what they're missing to do on that.
A14 was the answer, by the way. A14 Bionic.
Dylan, are there any closing remarks for yourself on the on these two devices or future devices regarding like foldable screens or just iPhones in general?
I think in terms of foldable devices, I'm definitely interested to see where it goes and where it evolves to in other areas. I think the promise is there. It would be interesting to see this kind of evolve into laptops and other handheld devices like that. So I think the promise is there. I think the concept is there. I think it's great. And I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. In terms of iPhones, it's hard to say because in my opinion, Apple is kind of hard to predict. Like, you might think that they're not doing something one year and then they end up doing it anyway, or you think that there's not going to be a huge upgrade to a phone and it comes out to be, you know, maybe the largest upgrade that year that we've seen in a long time. So it's harder for me to generate an opinion for Apple.
I just want to say I came up with a great reason for you yourself to get a foldable. So hold, wait for this. Drum machine on this side, right? Drum machine, and then other synth whatever stuff. But they're like two separate programs that generally wouldn't work together, but now they would work together.
Yes, I'm
Right?
into it. I love it.
Yeah, there you go. Quinnton, what about you? Any closing remarks for yourself on these things?
Just the same thing as Dylan. Just I'm very hopeful to see where the market goes, especially Windows. I don't foresee Apple doing much in this realm, but as long as we can improve those cameras and maybe eventually get iMessage on Android, I mean, if you could get those two things on a Surface Duo, get a much better camera, get iMessage on there, I could make that my mainstay for sure.
Yeah, if everybody just looks at Android as a platform to put your apps on, then we can all kumbaya together. If Apple can put Apple Music on Android, just put iMessage on there. It's not a big deal. Okay? It's really not. Like, people are still going to buy Macs and iPhones. Just do it, all right? So the last thing I'll say regarding it all, I guess I'm a little bit more optimistic than the two of you with regards to like when Apple might come out, and I have no preconceived reason to be more hopeful. I'm just I guess a little bit more stupidly optimistic, but I definitely see your points behind why Apple probably maybe never will ever do it. But with respects to Android as a whole, I do like that Google Android is not only allowing developers to take advantage of these dual screens, they're making it baked into their operating system. So if you're a developer and you want your app to work in this dual screen fashion, Google is supporting you in doing that. And no matter what people end up buying, if more people end up going with foldable screens, people will definitely see the benefit of having those two apps, or even maybe up to 4 apps side by side. I mean, maybe we'll have the same kind of windowed effect that we have on Windows, or I don't know if I'm sure Macs have it as well too, but being able to stack 4 windows in just one monitor, I'm sure we can figure out how to do that on Android as well. So, but that's it. If any of you listening or watching have your own opinion on this, please leave that in the comments. You can always leave us a message on anchor.com/stillrecording. Dylan, how can the lovely people of the internet find you out there?
I'm most active on Twitter and Instagram. Both of those are at Osito_sound. So at OSITO_SOUND. And there you can find links to all of my music, keep up to date with what I'm doing and new releases, and get to my website and all of that great stuff.
Sweet. What about you, Quinnton?
And as always for me, Instagram and Xbox at Firewall.
You guys can find me in those places under Lazy Tech Tony. All the Discord and Facebook links will be found in the description down below. As I mentioned, we have an Anchor page in which you can leave a message and let us know your thoughts on this whole iPhone Surface Duo battle. And until the next time, y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next one. Later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Heart